Good morning and welcome to another episode of Intensive Feminine Health. I am, as usual, your host or hostess, Dr. Mrs. Barimah. I hope you had a wonderful night because today I'm here to share with you a very, very critical health concern. On Monday, when we started this program, we looked at ovarian cancer. And like I said on Monday, September is the month of ovarian cancer awareness. Yesterday being Tuesday, we looked at breast cancer and we told you all the necessary details and information about breast cancer. Today, we're going to be looking at another critical cancer, that is cervical cancer. But there is a misconception about cervical cancer, that is the cause of cervical cancer. Now, the human papillomavirus is the only cause of cervical cancer, but it doesn't affect only women. It also affects men. So for today, men who have not listened to this program thinking it's just for women should please sit down and pay close attention because they're going to go home today with some fantastic new information. What is cervical cancer? Cervical cancer is the abnormal growth of cells in or around the cervix. What is the cervix, you may ask? The cervix is the neck of the uterus. The uterus is the womb in layman's term, where the baby is formed and grows in 9 months and is given birth to. The cervix is that little part of the uterus that effaces, that is, it thins out and dilates enough for the baby to be born. That is the cervix. You can see on the screen and see where the cervix is at on that diagram of the reproductive tract of the woman. All right. We have said that cervical cancer is the abnormal growth of cells in or around the cervix in women. We have told you also that it is the leading cause of death, number 2 leading cause of death in women. It is a growing global problem and is a problem that we need to tackle seriously. What about the statistics for cervical cancer? Cervical cancer is the 2nd leading cause of death in women. More than 500,000 new cases are diagnosed every year. In Nigeria, more than 50,000 cases are diagnosed annually. And out of those 50,000 new cases, it is sorry to say that more than 40,000 women die. In the course of this program, more than 15 women would have died because 2 women die from cervical cancer. 1 woman, died from cervical cancer every 2 minutes. And this program is just like 15-20 minutes. And you can imagine how many people will have died in 15-20 minutes from cervical cancer. So it is a cancer that cannot be ignored because in some quarters, in some school of thought, after some research, it is said that cervical cancer is gradually overtaking breast cancer as the leading cause of death in women. So it is a cancer that we cannot play or joke around with. So give us close ears and let's give you more information. I have just said earlier that human papillomavirus is the cause of cervical cancer. But what I have not told you is that cervical cancer is the only cancer that is not genetic. You do not develop cervical cancer as a result of an inheritance from your mom or your aunt. It is the only sexually transmitted cancer known to man. And the virus that causes cervical cancer is the human papilloma virus. How is this virus transmitted? And what is this virus? This virus is like any other virus, like the HIV virus. It is mutated. It is really very dangerous. It takes about 10 to 20 years to progress into cervical cancer. So it is so dangerous that it is silent. It sits in there in the cervix and just gradually, quietly progresses into cervical cancer without any symptom. By the time the woman begins to see any symptom, it's already too late. But thank God for preventive measures that I will tell you right when we come back from the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We've been talking about cervical cancer. Cervical cancer affects women between the ages of 20 to 49, but women who are younger than 20 have been known to contract cervical cancer. The good thing about cervical cancer is that it is preventable, but it is not curable. That is, the HPV that causes cervical cancer is not curable. But cervical cancer, if it's gotten on time, is treatable and it is curable. Now we're looking at human papillomavirus, HPV for short. There are about 4 strains known that causes cervical cancer in women, anal cancer in women, anal cancer in men, and penile cancer in men, as well as genital warts in both men and women. The genital warts is the precursor for cervical cancer, and it is caused by the human papillomavirus. We have the 16, 11, 18, and 6 strains of human papillomavirus. I said earlier that it can be prevented. And how can it be prevented? It can be prevented when, at the age of 9 to 11, young girls and young boys are given the human papillomavirus vaccine. They are available in Nigeria. They are expensive, but they are available, and they are 100% efficacious. 3 doses of this human papillomavirus are given from the day of contact, the first day, 2 months later, 6 months later, and you are sure to be free of cervical cancer or human papillomavirus that causes cervical cancer for the rest of your life. But for you to be able to access these vaccines, you have to be aware that there's something like human papillomavirus. And who gets human papillomavirus? Every man or every woman who is sexually active. How can we prevent the infection? We can prevent the infection if we as parents educate our children about cervical cancer and how it is transmitted, and make them available to these vaccines. But if we can also tell our children that if they can delay their sexual debut, their sexual adventures, to an older age when they are ready for marriage, then the spread of human papillomavirus that causes cervical cancer, as well as penile and anal cancer, including vaginal and anal warts, can be prevented. Also, we need to be faithful to our spouses, both men and women, because the rate at which human papillomavirus is passed across one person to the other depends on the number of sexual partners that somebody engages in. So if you have more than one sexual partners, the rate at which, or the possibility of contracting human papillomavirus, increases. What about male circumcision? Men who are not circumcised also have the tendency to pass across this virus very easily, because the penile hood that is circumcised or that is cut off during circumcision harbors the virus. The same thing as the HIV. It is easier for men who are not circumcised to pass the virus to their sexual partners. So imagine if a man who is not circumcised has various sexual partners. Each one of them becomes infected with human papillomavirus. And it is because of this program that we're trying to use this platform to educate you out there, to ensure that you stay safe and keep yourself from being infected. Another way we can prevent cervical cancer through the human papillomavirus infection is to use condoms. Condoms have been proven to be the only barrier contraceptive method that can prevent not just human papillomavirus transmission, but HIV and the other sexually transmitted infections. Also, another good news about human papillomavirus is that if you screen yourself, there's the DNA test for HPV, there's also the precancer test for women, which is a pap smear, and the VIA, which is visual inspection with acetic acid. All of these will pick up the precancers before they progress to cervical cancer. But you can only do this if you are aware of human papillomavirus, if you are aware of the dangers of cervical cancer, and if you have access to hospitals or healthcare centers where these tests are done. Now, the pap smear is to be done every 3 to 5 years. But because we do not know the ability of our spouses to be faithful to us, either the man or the woman, it is advised that rather than wait for every 3 to 5 years to go get your pap smear or your VIA done, you do it every year, just to be sure that nothing insidious is going on down there. So if you go and get screened every year, you'll be sure that if the precancer cells begin to form in the cervix, they will be caught on time. Because like I said earlier in the show, or like I said yesterday, early detection is the key to a healthy lifestyle. Now, when you do the pap smear, you do the VIA, the results for the VIA, which is a visual inspection with acetic acid, is readily available 5-10 minutes immediately after the test is done. But for the pap smear, you have to wait for 2 to 4 weeks or even 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the center, for the pathologist to do his thing under the microscope and then get back to you. If the test is positive for the precancer cells, don't be alarmed, because that is the perfect stage to have caught the disease. something that is called cryotherapy can be done to ablate or cut off the precancer cells or squash them off, and then you can go ahead to live a healthy lifestyle. All right, we talked about the vaccines, which is the vaccine that takes care of the cervical cancer or takes care of the human papillomavirus, and we said it is given in 3 doses. The vaccines are produced by 2 very big pharmaceutical companies. I will not mention their name here because they haven't paid us to do that. And so just know that these vaccines are available. If you have questions, you direct them at me, and then we can give you further information. Right, we have been looking at cervical cancer, and we have told you that cervical cancer is the number 2 leading cause of cancer deaths in women. It is slowly overtaking breast cancer as the leading cause of death in women. And we also told you that the virus that causes cervical cancer is sexually transmitted. And it is not just only for women, it also affects men. But because men do not have the cervix, because they do not have the uterus, they do not have the womb to give birth to children, the cancer that they get from human papillomavirus is in the penis as well as the anus. And the other downside of the human papillomavirus is the infection with warts, genital warts, blackish things that look like skin tags on the genital or the genitalia. These are all the effects of human papillomavirus. But we have told you right here on this show that all of this can be prevented by first being aware that something like human papillomavirus exists. 2, being aware that there are vaccines that can be taken in 3 doses to prevent the progression from precancer cells to cervical cancer or to penile cancer or to anal cancer. Even the simple act of kissing can even transmit the human papillomavirus. So we have to be very careful about our sexual adventures, the age of our sexual debut. We make sure that we tell our kids that these things are out there. Be careful with what you do with your bodies. Good. The next step we're going to look at now is the treatment. How is cervical cancer treated? Cervical cancer can be treated in various ways. If it is a precancer cell or the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, you have the surgery to take out the womb completely, because when the womb is taken out completely in the stage 3, where it's just palliative treatment, or you take out the uterus. When you take out the uterus, remember we said that the cervix is the neck of the uterus. So they take out the uterus, they take out the cervix, and the person is free. They give you chemotherapy, they give you radiotherapy, and you're fine. But if it is the precancer cells, they use what we call the cryotherapy machine to ablate or destroy the precancer cells, and you can go on to live a healthy lifestyle. I hope we have been able to give you pertinent information about cervical cancer today on this show. Hope to see you tomorrow, the same time. See you tomorrow. Thank you so much.